Good evening. Welcome to Employment Law Today. I'm your host, Eric Sauber from the Law Office of Eric and Sauber. I'm an employment law and business law attorney and the host of this weekly show, Tuesdays, 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, right here on talkradio.nyc. I'm here tonight with a special guest, friend and colleague of mine, Maureen Weisner. Maureen, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Eric. It's my pleasure to be here.
Glad you can make it. I'm going to give you a much more proper introduction in a moment, but before I do, I thought I'd just take a minute just to recap for some of our newer members of the audience or repeat listeners what the show is about and the purpose of Employment Law Today. And our main goal in having this show, my main goal, is to help business owners, small and mid-sized companies of all stripes, to weather the pandemic. We talk about employment law issues and labor law issues, whether they're around legal liability. And we also have guests that help our businesses with issues that are very relevant during the pandemic. So it could be, for example, issues around cybersecurity or employee relations, things that are taking a front seat during the time of COVID. And so in that spirit of inspiring and motivating and educating our audience tonight, I will introduce you, Maureen. Welcome again to the show.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's good to have you.
Oh, it's my pleasure. It's we've spoken on so many occasions, Eric, and I've listened to you speak to your radio audience many times, and I'm very impressed with the quality of the guests and the quality of what you bring to your audience.
Thank you, Maureen. And I echo that for you in terms of the, pardon me, quality of the guests. You're right in line there. Right back to you. Thank you. Which leads me to your intro, if I may. As I mentioned, my guest tonight is Maureen B. Weisner, Master of Ed, PCC and CPCC, co-founder and managing partner of the boutique career consulting firm, KICKSTART Your Transition, whose specialty includes helping individuals in or approaching transition, typically involving career change, divorce, education, and other work-life events. Maureen is a certified professional coach. She's also a seminar leader, speaker, and author. And Maureen Weisner has been recognized as a top 10 executive coach by Women's Business of Boston. Very impressive. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Sure. And Maureen's extensive business knowledge integrates a broad depth of experience from corporate sales, training, education, and small business ownership, which she brings to her clients. So with that, again, I would love to get into our topic, if I may. I thought Maureen would be great for this topic tonight, where title of the show is Professional Presentation, Pandemic Style. And what we're talking about here, folks, is basically the fact that in this time of Zoom and WebEx, where we've all gone virtual, it seems that professional appearance and presentation, which have always been crucial, always been important factors, are very key right now for candidates seeking employment or for small business owners looking to present to investors or network with their colleagues, or even to meet potential clients. And with the pandemic comes change in how we interact with others. We're much more virtual, we're much more digital. We're on Zoom, WebEx, Skype, telephone. In fact, Maureen and I are speaking right now by Zoom as opposed to in person. So the question is, how do you come across virtually in the age of coronavirus and video conferencing? Are you polished from presenting by Zoom or on the phone? So in this episode, Maureen will share her insights. Maureen will give us some observations and key tips and strategies to polish one's professional image in the time of the pandemic. So I said a mouthful. Maureen, I want to kick it over to you by asking you if you can tell us a bit more about yourself. Where did you start your career and how were you inspired to form KICKSTART Your Transition?
The Wayback Machine. I love it. Well, Eric, interestingly, I'd always wanted to be a classroom teacher. My earliest memories were of working with youngsters, and in all of my summer jobs in college and so forth. Education was very important to me. My role models as a youngster were classroom teachers. Many of the women who I had as classroom teachers would, in current times, be CEOs of companies. So unfortunately, when I graduated, the alignment wasn't with hiring teachers. So what do? You have to pivot. And that was my first experience with, here's a goal that you have. This is something that you absolutely intended to do. What do you do now? Well, you have to think more creatively. And as a young person, That's not always so easy because you've got all of your eggs in one basket, but you're forced to do something else. So what do you do? Well, I took jobs in private industry, in the federal government, moved to another city, moved to Philadelphia, again with working in retail, moving to the Boston area. At the time, a teaching job did become available, but there was also the possibility of working for a major airline. So I said, well, that's kind of curious. Let's see what it is. And in the meantime, I worked hard on my master's degree and continuing to look at teaching positions. But then you have these two options and you're weighing them. What do you do? Well, let's be curious and let's go with something that's different. So I spent many years at a major airline, left there, went to art school, opened two small businesses successfully, had a wonderful time, met many people, learned many different skills as you go because you're always learning. And as long as you're curious, as long as you're reading, as long as you're networking, as long as you're meeting and you're learning, and you have an open mindset about how you can learn, that you're capable, that even if it's uncomfortable, you can try it. You may fail, but you learn by failing. And indeed, our careers are very often much more about subtraction than addition because we're learning as we go. So I read something about coaching, which was relatively new at the time, thought it was interesting, pursued it, back and forth California and the East Coast for training and leadership and so forth, finished a master's in leadership and began coaching. At some point, I said, you know, my clients are coming to me with more questions about career in particular. So I was able to reconnect with a colleague, my business partner, Ann Bresnahan, and we worked at the airlines together for many years. She had gone in a different direction, working with two NGOs in Africa. So our skills were complementary, and we said, here's a great option. Let's try it. So approximately 10 years ago, we opened Kickstart Your Transition, and the rest is, as you say, current history.
Wow, that's just really quite a background, Maureen. You know, what strikes me there as interesting is that you started out on one path with education and it wasn't happening in the moment. And as you told your story of all the different experiences, I heard optimism and hope in there because whenever someone's willing to try something new, to take a new direction, and I would imagine, I don't want to presume, but I know that for me in my life, certain experiences, at the time, a situation may not have seemed like the right fit or that they would be valuable. How can this help me? But then when you look back and you see how everything from the past, if done mindfully and with an open mind, as you said, really contributes to the rich experience that I imagine you bring to your clients today. So that's really, I think, a good reminder for those that might be in transition right now during this pandemic. So I appreciate your
well said, Eric. It's, you know, connecting the dots when we look back and say, oh, now I get it. This is the place that I need to be right now. I've brought all of these pieces together and I've reconfigured something that's different. What's happening in the pandemic, it's scary for people. And we're either, you know, we've got this span of people in rowboats and people in yachts and everything in between. And when suddenly you're confronted with something that is completely new, completely unexpected, nothing is certain. The upside to this is that anything is possible. So when anything is possible and there are no rules, what do you do? How curious are you? And what does your safety net look like? How important is that? Are you a risk taker on a scale of 1 to 10? Are you a 12? Or are you, you know, I really, as in the investment world, how, I don't know if I can do it, but what about taking mini steps? What about a bridge job? What about, hey, if this doesn't work, I can quit?
It's a really great perspective there too, looking at things in terms of, I've heard they say dream big and act small, take small steps along the way.
Absolutely.
It really, you know, you talk about, Maureen, the COVID-19 right now, the environment, and how it definitely can be ripe for change, no doubt. I'm just wondering if you can share with us, what was your experience helping clients to refine their presentation skills pre-COVID-19?
Well, pre-COVID-19, we always focus on preparation, the importance of preparation. You know, people think that if you're good at whatever it is, that you can wing it, that you're naturally good at something. And Eric, as you're shaking your head, we know how much time it takes to prepare. In fact, if you think about TED Talks, and we've all watched TED Talks,
Sure.
those that are really, really just nail it and hit home and you marvel at this, and it's only 18 minutes, only 18 minutes. The average time that the best TED presenters have spent is rehearsing 200 times.
Wow.
That's significant. And I can track back to a time when I heard a speaker at a small event that my husband and I were attending, and he was just terrific. And I'd seen him at other events, and he was just so smooth and wonderful. And I'd gone up to his wife was standing with him, and I mentioned that how complimentary I wanted to be and how impressed I was with the value of what he was delivering and how well and how engaged he was with the audience. And she said, I said, oh, it's just a natural thing for him. And she said, oh, absolutely not. He practices and rehearses and refines, and he wants to deliver the best possible product when he gets up in front of a group. Something to remember. So presentation, Eric, that's really important. So pre-COVID, what's different? Understanding that you should arrive on a timely basis, that as soon as you walk in the door of whatever the organization is, people are looking at you. It doesn't mean the cameras are necessarily focused on you, but it's how you greet the person at the information desk. It's how you greet if there's an elevator operator, but probably not. It's more like a security person. It's how you get off the elevator. It's who's at the front desk. It's smiling. It's being forward thinking. It's being genuine. So you want to, not just about impressing, but you really want to connect with everyone who you're meeting in a meeting. It doesn't have to be, I don't need to know your life history, but small talk is certainly appropriate. And again, make sure that you're on time. Make sure you have a hard copy of your resume, because people do get very anxious and they forget some of the points that they want to hit. And again, getting settled. But something I heard recently, have you ever watched Amy Cuddy? She's also the author of Presence. She does a terrific TED Talk. It's Amy Cuddy. I'm 99% sure on that, but she talks about empowerment and how you can get yourself poised for that moment, for that interview. So if you do have time, and this is actually great in the virtual world because you can take your time, put your feet up on your desk and lean back, hands behind your head, and just take in the energy. What she has found through testing with her students is that the level of testosterone increases dramatically when you strike a pose like this. So feet up on the desk, hands behind your head, taking in the room. So the higher your level of testosterone also decreases the amount of cortisol. So the anxiety is reduced. If you don't have a desk and a place to put your feet up, a good thing to do is a power pose. So those people who are familiar with yoga, of course, hands high, feet astride, planted on the floor, because we can really connect with the ground, with the earth, however you want to configure it, when we are relaxed, but at the same time we are, yes, we've got it. So if you are in a setting where you are physically there, go into the restroom, find a quiet place, find some place where you're not necessarily observed, and take that power pose or put your feet up. Because being confident, it's not a question of arrogance. It changes the position of your shoulders. It changes your affect so that you do feel more confident when you're shaking hands, you're making eye contact. And of course, Eric, as we can see here, making eye contact is very important. If it's virtual, you want to look at the camera, because if you're looking strictly at yourself, even worse. If you're looking at yourself on the screen, then you're all over the place. So it's focus.
Maureen, excellent points. We have to take a commercial break. We'll be back shortly. Those are some excellent points about presentation style, image, polished professional image, especially pre-COVID and even during COVID. And I'd love to hear how we apply those when we're on a Zoom call. So we'll take a quick commercial break. I'm Eric Sauber, host of Employment Law Today, here with my guest, Maureen Weisner of KICKSTART Your Transition. Stick around. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
love or are you intrigued about New York City and its neighborhoods? I'm Jeff Goodman, host of Rediscovering New York, a weekly show that showcases New York's history and its extraordinary neighborhoods. Every Tuesday live at 7 p.m., we focus on a particular neighborhood and explore its history, its vibe, its feel, and its energy. Tune in live every Tuesday at 7 p.m. on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a conscious co-creator? Are you on a quest to raise your vibration and your consciousness? I'm Sam Leibowitz, your conscious consultant. And on my show, The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, we will touch upon all these topics and more. Listen live at our new time on Thursdays at 12 noon Eastern Time. That's The Conscious Consultant Hour, Awakening Humanity, Thursdays, 12 noon on talkradio.nyc.
Hi, I'm Graham Dobbin. Join me every Thursday evening for the Mind Behind Leadership here on talkradio.nyc. We speak to people from business, sport, military and politics, all around what makes a great leader. The personal experiences of what's worked and, maybe more importantly, what hasn't worked. So that's 7 o'clock every Thursday evening, the Mind Behind Leadership here on talkradio.nyc. Listen to real stories of real leaders.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Welcome back to Employment Law Today. I'm your host, Eric Sauver, from the law office of Eric M. Sauver, employment law, business law attorney. I'm here again tonight, as mentioned, with my guest, Maureen Weisner. Maureen is a career coach and the founding and managing partner of KICKSTART Your Transition. I should say co-founder of KICKSTART Your Transition. So just for those that might be joining us a bit late, or even just to recap, we've had some great discussion so far about, first off, the importance of presentation and one's image being polished, being professional. And Maureen was just discussing her background prior to that conversation. And then we talked a little bit about the importance of little things that you do in person. And we were talking mainly pre-COVID-19. So going into a business meeting, going into a job interview, talking with your investors in a company, and to make sure that you are making eye contact, dressed appropriately, on time, smiling, making small talk. And we talked about some poses that Maureen mentioned that can get one into a confident position. I actually was curious, Maureen, while you were on the break, I actually did the hands behind the back, but without knocking the microphone over. And it does feel, I must say, a bit empowering. It reminds me of Buddhism. Talk about Buddhism and talk about taking your seat and sort of connecting with the ground beneath you and having your back straight and breathing. So really interesting. I wonder if we can talk a little bit more about how one's presentation and image can be polished in this time when we're all on Zoom and WebEx and FaceTime.
Well, I think you make a good point, Eric. Getting centered is essential for clients who are not on Zoom. And I recommend, if it's possible for you, to take a break from Zoom, if it's possible to do a phone interview. And that does happen these days also. Everyone doesn't always want to be on Zoom. If you can, a headset is a great tool. And that way you can stand. And we recommend standing when you're on a call because, again, not on Zoom. You have to be very careful when you're on Zoom that the camera is facing you in an appropriate way, that it's not, your head isn't tilted back, that your chin is certainly in the right place, that you're looking forward. And we talked about this a little bit beforehand. For people who tend to be, move around a lot or find that they're fidgety, get rid of anything on wheels. Put a chair down that's going to be just stationary, sit there and make sure that you're planted in one place, because for the person on the other side of this, it makes them seasick. Likewise with virtual backgrounds, Stay in one place, because otherwise we're looking at, wow, that's making me dizzy. People will get very turned off quickly, even though they're interested in what you have to say. So you want to slow down your pace of speech, something that as a New Yorker, you know, Eric, this is something we just communicate differently, and having grown up in the city, I get it. So I really do have to make an effort to slow down. And for some people, it feels very uncomfortable. It's worth practicing. Practice in the mirror, practice with a partner. It's important when you are, as a business owner, you're looking for funding. If you are a candidate for a position, you want to be best prepared. And how do you do that? Script it. Script it. Do not wing it. Make sure that you have some points that you would like to get to. People have a very short attention span. And as you and I both know, people are thinking more in bullets now. So they think very quickly, take in the information, they're on to the next point. I read something funny that's actually, well, it is, and it's amusing to the extent that if you remember as kids, or taking your own child out to a country fair or some kind of carnival and you win a goldfish. Goldfish are beautiful, you take a goldfish home. Goldfish has a relatively short lifespan, but the difference between a goldfish and us is that a goldfish wins every time, because the attention span of a goldfish is 9 seconds versus the human attention span at 8 seconds. So think of that. Wow. A goldfish, the poor thing, hope it's floating someplace and it's happy. But I imagine, again, slowing down, attention span, how people think. We have just a certain amount of brain capacity in the course of a day where we can take in information and we can process it, which means that towards the end of the day, decision-making, probably not so great. If people do things that probably aren't the best decisions, as in too much drinking, too much eating, too much of TV watching, it tends to happen at the end of the day. So we want to make sure that when we're presenting, we're prepared, we're doing it at a time when we have our energy. First thing of the day, I always say this: get up, get dressed, and get out. That is the best way to start the day. So if you go out, I go out for coffee every morning just to get myself in gear. For some clients who are working at home, they will find that leaving the house and re-entering the house, either through the garage or basement, or they'll close the door and come in again, it changes the way they see the boundaries around work. And since everything is so intertwined right now, we want to take the best advantage that we can of being our most powerful self, of being our most composed self, and being most centered when we are attending to work and moving forward. So think about this. Credibility, Eric. What is it about credibility? A shocking number that I hope it's not taken out of context, but I believe it's correct. 55% of our credibility is based on the way we look. Does not mean magazine cover, lovely if you can, not necessary. It just means you don't look like a hot mess. You look like somebody that's appropriate. You've combed your hair. If you wear eyeglasses, again, make sure they're up to date, not from grade 3 that you kind of dug out of a drawer and put on. The way you look is important, followed by 38% the way you sound. People are willing to listen to the sound, and only 7% is actually related to what you're saying. So when you have to think about this, what did your mother say? You never get a second chance to make a first impression. So you want to be as prepared as you can to be upfront. I want to like you. People do business with people they know, like, and trust. So if you start out in that space originally, you're not trying to make up lost distance. You're already positioned. The interviewer is prepared. The investor is looking at you. You're speaking to your team. You're the person who's in charge. You have the information. You're ready to deliver it. You're making eye contact. You're moving from person to person. And again, not so that it's making people queasy because they're getting motion sickness from excessive motion. So you want to, again, be as centered as you can and present as best you can.
Some really important points there, Maureen. First off, thank you for all these very specific details. And, I smiled internally at the thought of and slowing down and being a New Yorker. It's like I have a friend and colleague who used to joke before presentations because he spoke a little on the quick side, as I do as well. And he would say to people when he was presenting in another state, Midwest, the South, small town, Northwest, he'd say, folks, I'm from New York. I was born there. I grew up there. I was raised there. He said, we're New Yorkers. We walk fast. We talk fast. And we watch a 2-hour movie in 25 minutes. So if anything I'm saying is too quick, let me know. And I'm happy to slow down and repeat. But really good points that we can be mindful of our pace and our speed. And it's interesting because we hear these things a lot. We hear like slow down, be confident, be still. But often we don't hear the sort of the how of how we get to that place. And so what I hear from you are concrete examples of that, take a few deep breaths or go into a certain yoga pose or get centered in your seat. And even just, the idea that when we get dressed and prepared, now that we're on Zoom, we have to remember that our background is so important. When we pre-COVID, if we were having for example, a court conference, let's say in federal court, my bedroom at home would be completely irrelevant because I am standing in a courtroom in front of a judge. And what I'm seeing these days, which some other attorneys have seen as well, are people who, they show up for the, let's say, a Zoom court conference or mediation of a case, and they're wearing a button shirt and a sport jacket, their hair is combed, but in the background is an unmade bed in their bedroom and a poster on the wall. And I think it like takes away from whatever your positive presentation is. You got your hair combed, you got your shirt on, all pressed. But so I like the idea about the background and the point that to know oneself, right? If we're people that tend to be fidgety, and that's okay, but just kind of make note of that and try to avoid either the chair on wheels or the virtual background. So all interesting points, really. It kind of brings me to a question, maybe a follow-up question. I'm wondering, what are some of the biggest challenges you've observed in your clients over the last 11 months? And before you answer that, I'm seeing that we're coming up on a commercial break in about 2 minutes. So maybe I'll save that for when we get back. The question of what are some of the biggest challenges you've seen from your clients, or from people, I should say, in the last 11 months in terms of being polished and presentable. You're listening, folks, to talkradio.nyc. The show is called Employment Law Today. I'm your host, Eric Sauver, and I'm here with Maureen Weisner. I thought it might be wise to take a break now as opposed to in the middle of your answer. So if everyone can stick around, we'll be back in a moment.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Are you interested in having a better relationship with yourself, others, and God? Greetings. I'm your host, Dr. George Andow, for the show A Journey Through into Awareness. On my show, we journey into the awareness that the mind of God is the true seat of our personal consciousness. We join together each Monday at 7 p.m., so tune in on Talk Radio NYC.
You know you have it, the potential for a more rewarding life, a life that matters. But how do you get there? The answer is in a best-selling book by the coach of the successful and wealthy, Ken D. Foster, The Courage to Change Everything, Daily Strategies and Wisdom to Awaken Your Hidden Genius and Transform Your Life. With this powerful yet amazingly simple daily guide, your future is in your hands. You will be empowered to unlock your potential, bring out your true gifts, increase your wealth, and take your life and business to a new level. Get your life-transforming copy of Ken D. Foster's The Courage to Change Everything by going to couragetochange.us. That's couragetochange.us. Quite frankly, there's no other book like this. Imagine what your life could be like if you had at your fingertips the success principles to create the life you've always wanted. Are you ready to live your dream? Go to couragetochange.us.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Welcome back to Employment Law Today. I'm your host, Eric Sauver. I'm here with my guest tonight, Maureen Weisner, career coach and founder of KICKSTART Your Transition. Maureen, just before the commercial break, I think I asked you the question, what are some of the common problems you've observed in clients in terms of keeping a professional image over the last 11 months?
Well, I think it's a good question, Eric, because professional image is different, as you suggest, in person in many ways versus electronically, remotely. The idea that suddenly the geography of the world is open up to you, so that even if you're based on the East Coast, you can, if you're on Indeed and you say, "Oh, this looks wonderful, I can fly air balloons in New Mexico," maybe not. But the world now is not limited by actually where you are. So if you can work virtually now, the pool that you're competing with for job candidates is much larger. So that is off-putting to many people. They really don't know how to handle that, because suddenly, if you were based in New York, you're competing with X number of people who can relocate there and so forth. Now you can be anywhere. So what does that do? So for some people, the opportunity is just, it opens up everything. And then you have to kind of draw back and say, well, hang on a second. If you're somebody who's based on, in the financial world, for example, and the market is most important, so you have to be available for the opening of the market. And now you're suddenly going to be in San Francisco. Is that going to work for you? Maybe yes, maybe not. Are you an early bird? Are you a night owl? Thinking about what's important to you, what's important about family, what's important about your values, what's important about the presentation that you're making, and how you can incorporate your best assets into getting that job. And is that job the right one for you? So it feels like almost Pandora's box. It's this big treasure box of opportunity. And at the same time, many times we'll say to clients, just say yes, because there's real opportunity for you to try something on. Imagine that it's not the first suit or the first item that you tried. Imagine that it's just one of many. But when we talk about pace, and you make a good point, for your friend and colleague who would speak in different areas, at least he recognized that he was not a fish out of water so much as, this is my space, this is the way I talk. So please raise your hand if it's problematic. Let me know. So he's prefacing everything that he's doing with an explanation, so it's not surprising, which is a terrific technique. When we think about how we can best present, there is no correct style. You'll find your own style and what works best for you. Getting feedback is important. And one thing that is very important is avoiding vocal fry, upspeak, something that people often forget that they're doing. So you're not sure if they're asking a question or if they're finished with their statement. It's something that you probably don't recognize, and it's a good opportunity to record yourself and listen, do a Zoom call and record it so that you can see what it is, how you sound, how you appear, and it gives you a lot of information. For many people, anxiety is the trigger. So how do we quell anxiety? Again, the flight or fight response, we don't have saber-toothed tigers running after us anymore, but we still become anxious, and reasonably. We want to do well, we want to perform, we want to make a good impression. If again, you're looking for financing, you're a business owner, you might be looking for a sale. So now you're talking to M&A people, you're talking to lots of different resources, attorneys like yourself, accountants. You still want to make the best impression. So what do? Think about, and this is an exercise we do with clients all the time, just choose 3 things. It's a gratitude exercise. 3 things that you're grateful for. Now, yes, you can make a list of 100 things probably, or possibly not, but think in terms of 3. 3 is very manageable. 3 things that you're grateful for. And in the multiple workshops that I have ever done, there are universal themes, Eric. As you can well imagine, people will frequently say they're grateful for family, health, friends, work, pets, home, whatever it is. We encourage clients to put that on a Post-it, put it on your phone, put it on your computer, put it in a place that's very close to where you're operating. And so when you feel yourself getting overwhelmed, a way to calm down is not to drink more coffee and get more jazzed up. A good way to calm down is to think about those things and imagine a picture of your children, of a 1.5-year-old, of a 15-year-old, of your wonderful pet, of your beautiful home, of a vacation that you'd like to take in the future, but calming thoughts. So for people that really are feeling fish out of water right now, because as we said, when nothing is certain, anything is possible, how can you best take advantage of that? Through networking, through introductions, through reading, asking questions. Oftentimes, and I was just quoted in Fast Company magazine, which was great. And one of those questions was, how is the interview process different now? And one of those points is, talk to me about what you've been doing during COVID. In the job search is not sufficient because lots of people are in the job search. Are you upskilling? What have you read recently? How are you composed? So we want to make sure that you're prepared, that you have scripts available, that they're quick scripts, that it's something, it doesn't have to be very lengthy. And in a job interview, let's face it, a job description is just a wish list, Eric. We know this. This is something, and you know, you've hired people. This is in a perfect world. This is who I would be looking for. But in this case, job interview is not an interrogation. We want it to be conversational. We want to make sure that you're focused, that you're taking care of yourself, that you're presenting yourself in the best light possible. This is your opportunity to brag in a way that includes your accomplishments, what you can contribute. Most important, as always, be prepared. Eye contact, very important. Virtual handshakes, not possible. Thank yous, always important. Slowing down, slowing down, slowing down. So whether it's New York or New Jersey or whatever our habits are, we want to be aware of them and how we present. Eye contact, very important. Calming yourself, being prepared beforehand with those scripts. What was a great success story? What was a failure? What did I learn from this? How can I contribute differently going forward? What are my expectations? How can I be of service? So those are the kinds of things that clients are coming to us with. Big career transitions. I don't like what I'm doing now. I never want to do it again. I'm selling my business. I have all kinds of opportunity. So we help clients try to figure out what's important to them, what their values are, what are the deal breakers, and commute probably is not at the top of the list at this point.
And I should mention, as I mentioned in the introduction, Maureen, thank you for that. Really just such a comprehensive answer in terms of what you've observed. It's true. I know that your company really focuses on helping people in career transition, and that could be changing careers, getting a new job, a new profession. And when you talked about earlier on, the sort of the boundaries geographically no longer binding us, and all the choices, and how that can overwhelm people. It kind of reminds me of going to certain diners in New York City. They have the 26-page menu, and my wife and I both have this trait where too many choices, it's like overwhelming. You know, take us to a place with a 1-page menu, we're happy. And early on in our dating, maybe the 4th or 5th date, both kind of laughed, maybe the 6th date in, that we both got this menu with 16 pages, like subsection 3. But when you think about it, and when that happens, if you really try and decide what to eat, you go, okay, well, I had eggs for breakfast, so I'm not going to look at the omelet part. Maybe I'm not in the mood for, a salad, so that cuts out. Oh, this is the, and then you sort of just pare down your options. And so I kind of draw the analogy from what you're telling your clients about, think about where you might be. If, again, looking for a job in Los Angeles where it's an early start, if you're in New York and you're telecommuting in the pandemic, keep in mind that 8 a.m. there is 5 a.m. or the opposite. Yeah, so it's really good to hear those things. It's really, I think, really helpful for us to think of those factors. The gratitude list, I just like thank you for that, because it's such a true thing. I've always heard that gratitude gives us a perspective on our problems and challenges, and not to say that a job interview is a problem, but it can be a challenge, and it can feel like a challenge, and it can feel like, you know, the only thing on one's radar. And I think when someone's going into an interview, or let's say a small business looking to attract investors, or even interview a candidate for a job, you know, sometimes I know as an interviewer, as an employer at times, that sometimes we can be nervous on the other side of the coin, you know, flip side of the coin there. But just to have gratitude, and it's just really helpful tips. And it's fascinating to hear what your people are going through, your clients, because I think that's what people tonight who are watching might be experiencing. So, you know, we're all human. We have this human commonality, this connection. And so, you know, everyone, I think, especially in these times of COVID-19, people's anxieties are ratcheted up. And so really good to hear some of those tips. It's kind of, you know, it's funny, you answered some other follow-up questions I had for you about walking us through some of these tips you have, but I'm wondering if you have any interesting stories, changing the names, or, you know, of course, the details to protect your clients' privacy, but any interesting anecdotes you want to share with us, maybe perhaps a client who went from, let's say, unpolished, in quotes, to more polished with your help with your company?
Well, actually, there are two things that are that I recommend. One is if you can take an improv class online, which is a fabulous resource. It helps you, you know, again, for people who are reluctant to be on a stage in person, here's an opportunity for you to practice and learn how to, you know, speak on the fly. That's something, you know, that it's thrown out there, and there's a humorous part of it, and you can fail. And you know, we always talk about how try something new. And we tell our kids, absolutely try it. If it doesn't work, you know, try it, you'll like it, or you won't like it. And that's okay. It's okay to kick things to the curb. It increases, you know, again, that space of, I remember telling someone that I'd always dreamed about being an archaeologist. And it just so happened this was the most unlikely person in the world who would have any experience with archaeology. And he said to me, you know, it's so interesting that you mentioned that. I was at Oxford for a period of time, and one of the things that we did was go on a group dig. And he said, if you think watching paint dry is boring, this was more than boring. And it was being in one place at one time. And I said, oh my goodness. He said, you're crouched in one place with a little paintbrush. And I said, did you find anything? And he said, not especially. It was hot, it was dry, I was uncomfortable. And now I know I never have to do it again. And I said, thank you so much. Archaeology, love to read about it, don't actually have to do that. But one of our favorite clients, and I will tell you just anecdotally, she's fabulous. And again, the name is changed. But she was somebody who was in the healthcare field and was very successful in the healthcare field, managing large institutions. The venue where she was working and managing was sold. And the new owner said, it's been nice, here you go, see you later. Nothing happened. So we walked her through mock interviews and so forth. And is this the industry that she wanted to stay in? Yes, absolutely. It's something that I wanted to do. And she'd gone through one interview after another and couldn't close. Couldn't figure it out. We said, you know, it's time to really take a break from this. It really is. And so she and her husband had Harleys, and they rode Harleys, and they enjoy riding Harleys. They're not bikers. They're very traditional. And they were in the Harley showroom, and they were looking for someone at that time to manage a showroom. And so she said, you know what, I'll give it a try. And she did. She's since segued back into healthcare in another iteration. But the fact that she was willing and able to do it, Eric, it's just amazing. It enhanced not only what she had to talk about, because be prepared, again, interviewers are not, it's not an inquisition. You want to be conversational. There may be something that connects you with the interviewer. You may look at their background and see pictures of skiers or a picture of a Maserati, and you love automobiles. There's something that you're going to connect. We're human being to human being. So for her, again, to take this sort of exit path and then get back on the ramp and back to what she really liked to do with a different and renewed sense of who she was and what she enjoyed and what she could contribute.
That sounds like a great story of success from one of your clients. No doubt that your help, the advice about the bridge job, encouraging her to take it. I'm sure the other tips that you and your business partner bring to the table. It's very nice to hear those success stories. It's also a nice way to end out the segment. We have 15 minutes left in the show, but we have a commercial break we're taking now. So, folks, you're listening to Employment Law Today on Talk Radio NYC. I'm Eric Sauber, host of the show, Tuesday nights, 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. with my guest tonight is Maureen Weisner from KICKSTART Your Transition. Stick around. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC. Uplift, educate, empower.
Are you a small business trying to navigate the COVID-19 related employment laws? Hello, I'm Eric Sauber, employment law business law attorney and host of the new radio show, Employment Law Today. On my show, we'll have guests to discuss the common employment law challenges business owners are facing during these trying times. Tune in on Tuesday evenings from 5 p.m. to 6 p.m. Eastern Time on talkradio.nyc.
Are you a business owner? Do you want to be a business owner? Do you work with business owners? Hi, I'm Stephen Fry, your small and medium-sized business or SMB guy, and I'm the host of the new show, Always Friday. While I love to have fun on my show, we take those Friday feelings of freedom and clarity to discuss popular topics on the minds of SMBs today. Please join me and my various special guests on Friday at 11 a.m. on talkradio.nyc.
Do you run or are ready to open your own business? Hi, I'm Jeremiah Fox. I've been operating and opening small business for the last 25 years, and I'm the host of the new show, The Entrepreneurial Web. Tune in every Friday at noon Eastern Time for insights and stories on the nuances of running small business right here on Fridays at noon, talkradio.nyc.
You're listening to Talk Radio NYC at www.talkradio.nyc. Now broadcasting 24 hours a day.
Welcome back to Employment Law Today. I'm your host, Eric Sauber, here tonight with Maureen Weisner, co-founder of KICKSTART Your Transition. Maureen specializes in helping people who are in transition with their career, whether they're looking for a new job or a new position or trying to change fields. And we're talking about professional image tonight, about how to be polished and professional and how to increase and improve your chance of success through being mindful of your appearance. And we're talking about this tonight in the context of where many of us find ourselves these days, right? We're basically virtual. We're here in the pandemic, on Zoom, on FaceTime, on Skype and telephones, and not having that in-person connectivity that can sometimes spark a feeling of relaxation. So I'm just grateful that Maureen is here to share some of her methods, her tips. We talked about the different ways to calm oneself anxiety, the mindfulness of slowing oneself down, slowing down the pace. And Maureen, one thing I heard you say, and I'm just recapping here, so I don't want you to be like on edge waiting for a question. I'm just kind of recapping what I'm hearing. I hear a lot about preparation, and I hear like a healthy sense of humility, right? And humility in my mind means keeping things in perspective. It's not like humble doesn't mean you're less than the other candidate out there, the business owner out there. It doesn't mean you're greater than. You're just kind of keeping like right size, I guess, for lack of a better term. So I sort of hear that in coming through. Is that Do you tend to agree with that humility, that definition, and do you apply that to your clients or teach them about that in some way?
I think self-awareness is really important. I think that's what you're addressing. Understanding that the person who is on the other side of the camera, if you will, is also in a situation where, we're all in the pain and gain space of what's my pain and how can I gain by either employing you, doing business with you? What does that look like? So that, yes, you want to put your best foot forward. And yes, you want to interact with the person in the most positive way possible. And at the same time, again, if I'm the purchaser, if I'm the employer to be, I want to be able to check this off my list. So we talked about this a little bit. We do business with people we know, like, and trust. So you want to make sure that, again, as real as you can be without being overly conversational. You don't want the interview, for example, to be hijacked because you've gone down other avenues that aren't going to lead you to a space where it makes sense. You want to make sure that you are in control as much as you can be and that you get it back on track. Understand what your goals are before you get on a call, get on a phone call, get on a Zoom call. So at least have an idea of the direction that you'd like to take. And when you think about candidates in this space right now, it's confusing because the rules, the traditional rules that we think about don't really apply in the same way. And at the same time, they really do apply. So you want to make sure that you are, again, prepared, that you have scripts, that you have ways that you can self-calm, and that you're also networking. In all of this process, it's informational interviewing, whether the job or whether the purchase or whatever it is doesn't actually happen, whether there is no final execution or not, there's something that you can learn from this. And we recommend for all our clients that no matter what the phone call is, no matter what the interaction, that you keep a spreadsheet and you write down your impressions when you finish that, because most people can't remember what they had for breakfast yesterday, never mind what just happened. So what was important? Was there something in this interview that I might have missed, that I could have had a better answer for? You're gaining information. You can be a detective on your own behalf, so that you want to be that person that's collecting, and not to overburden yourself, but understand maybe I was too involved in my response. Maybe I could have been briefer. Maybe I could have gotten to the point more quickly. Maybe I wasn't really listening. And that's another part of this, Eric. It's listening to the question, pausing, responding, asking for clarification. No one ever asks a silly question. And I say to clients, never say it's a silly question. Ask for clarification. And most people are more than willing to do that. When you get to this next step, bridge jobs, bridge opportunities, try it out, and think as much as you can that you're talking to a 5-year-old who you would encourage to try that new thing. For some clients will say, whatever it is, try something new, try something that's different. When they get really wrapped up in the interview process, things are not closing, and things just aren't happening, how can you be supportive? Do something that's entirely different. And in fact, a success story that I'm sure would help some of your listeners is this. We had a CFO who's fabulous, very well qualified. He didn't have a whole lot of deal breakers in terms of where he could go and what he could do. He actually said that what he wanted was a parking spot and he wanted a view of trees, because he had been in manufacturing for years. So I said, well, I think we're not recruiters, but we can certainly help position you for those next steps. So he had gone to multiple interviews and could not close, and we couldn't figure it out. Again, what's happening here? So we said, take a break from this, take a break and do something else. What did you like to do when you were in school? What sport did you engage in? And he said that he'd been a runner. So, okay, let's follow through, get the process going. What's the big deal? Get a pair of sneakers and get out and run. So, and he said he hadn't been running in a long time, blah, blah, blah. And so, lots of things, because we get stuck where we are. We get stuck with our routines. We get stuck in what we're doing. And let's think about being flexible. The long and the short of it is that he did get sneakers, but it was after he was pushed to go to a particular store where they do a great analysis of what your needs are. And then the next step was, why don't you join a running club with us? And the next step was, yes, indeed, Eric, he did. He joined the running club. And what's the next step? He met new people. His networking opportunities broadened exponentially, and he had 2 job interviews as a result of the new people that he met. So in preparing himself for next steps, he was courageous in that he was uncomfortable, but it was okay.
Wow. And that to me truly is a success story. You know, there are so many things you said there that I'd love to sort of expound upon. But we have 2 minutes to wrap up. So I want to leave that time for you to share anything else you might want to share with the listeners tonight. Some events you might have going on, or a webinar, or just how we can contact you. How can people who want to hire Kickstart Your Transition find your company? Would you like to share?
Absolutely. Well, we're in the process of redoing our website now, so I'm very excited about that. My business partner and I are working hard on it. So you can always find us at kickstartyourtransition.com and reach out. We'd be happy to talk to you about the packages that we offer, individual packages, resumes, CVs, all of the pieces that go with interview prep, salary negotiation. We do everything to prepare clients for prime time, so that even though we're not recruiters, we get you to that space where you have built your confidence, you are prepared with a strategic blueprint for next steps, and moving forward from that. It's always our pleasure to work with individual clients at any time.
Maureen, thank you so much for that. So, and your business colleague's name once again is?
Anne Bresnahan.
Okay, I wanted to give Anne Bresnahan enough of some credit as well for what you both have created. I really appreciate your taking the time tonight to be on the show, and I'm sure it's very helpful to our listeners. I'm Eric Sauver, just to sign off here. I'm the host of Employment Law Today. Tune in to talkradio.nyc on Tuesday nights at 5 p.m. You can watch us live on facebook.com/talkradionyc, or you can listen live at the website. So once again, everyone, have a wonderful night. Maureen Weisner from Kickstart Your Transition, thank you so much for your appearance tonight.
And thank you, Eric.
You're welcome.
Thank you. A pleasure.
Okay, so we have to sign off. So we will resume next week, and have a wonderful evening.